For this next segment, I want to go over my experiences in my 3 Alchemist lives. I'm just finished my 3rd Alchemist life, and I'll be grabbing this and putting it on the YouTube machine, and it's just really going to be mostly for people who haven't played Alchemist yet, just to give you some tips and my thoughts. I'll also be talking about a few bugs and things that I noticed along the way, and let's get to it. So, in my first Alchemist life, I played the Bombardier, which is the nuker tree right here. And I went human and pure Bombardier, pure 20 Alchemist, just because, I hadn't played Alchemist before, and I thought, you can't go wrong with human, right? Human's good just about for anything. Although, an intelligence-based race, might have been better. Tiefling for, big fire spell power, which you could substitute for other spell powers. For nuking might have been really great. Maybe not Dragonborn, but like an intelligence race or something. But in any event, human worked out just fine. And my initial experiences with Alchemist was that I hated it at first. Alchemist I found was very painful in single-digit levels. Absolutely spell point starved throughout heroics, but especially in single-digit levels. And I found that things took a massive turn at around level 10 when we got more ranged AoE DPS. Now, that was the only time I played the Bombardier in single-digit levels, because this last life I did an Iconic, so I started at 15. I think I might have been able to be more successful in single-digit levels if I had learned to play with, for lack of a better term, what I'll call the ambush playstyle. It's like, when you use Energy Burst and you run in and you blow up and then you keep running. Because the Alchemist has some AoE DPS spells that are like that, but that's, we're not really used to playing that way in early levels, and I had the more traditional caster mindset where I wanted to cast from afar. So if I could have adapted to that play style earlier on, I might have been more successful, but it was absolutely just dreadful for me. But once we hit level 10, it was like turned a corner fast. And, we got more AoE DPS. We were just blowing shit up like crazy. And then when we hit level 12, even more so, because we got the elemental obliteration, and you can choose your different elements. I have the frost because I'm cold spec, but that's an AoE. That's basically like a fireball kind of a SLA, but you can choose different elements. And then you also get your weakening mixture, and you can choose whatever element and make any mob affected by your element. So you can damage any mob, and by any mob I mean any mob. Every mob you can damage with your element. So once you get weakening mixture, you no longer have to worry about diversifying your spells. You don't have to worry, I got to get some fire spells, I got to get some electric spells, because everything is going to be affected by your chosen element. So once I got that, I was all in with cold. I don't have to worry about anything else at that point, at least damage types. So once we hit level 12, it was really just off to the races, and by level 15, it felt so overpowered that it just felt nerf-worthy. I mean, it was ridiculous. But then things leveled out into epics. It was still very strong, and was very strong in endgame as well. So I had a lot of fun. Once we hit level 10, I had a blast, but before that, it was just dreadful. I think what would help with spell point conservation is if there was another offensive SLA. Unfortunately, your SLAs come really slowly, and your spell progression comes really slowly. Because they're specialists and not, true spellcasters, they have spell progression that's akin to, like, bards, for example, not, like wizards and druids and clerics and stuff like that. So the spell progression was really slow, and you get this one single target, spell vial SLA, and you don't get another DPS SLA until level 12, and you get elemental obliteration. These other SLAs, which I really don't understand, this is a rapid condensation is an obscuring mist SLA. I don't even understand why that's there. It just doesn't really even make sense to me. I found it just useless. Maybe there's something I'm missing, but I really feel like that needed to be replaced by, a tier 2 damaging SLA, and that would have really helped with spell point conservation. And the smoke bomb SLA, like, that's not bad. Like, I would rather it be replaced by an offensive SLA. I mean, the smoke bomb is basically, it's a 12-second invisibility and displacement. So it's kind of neat. Helps you with your ambush playstyle. But two non-offensive SLAs in the Bombardier tree, which is the nuking tree, that's wrong in my opinion. So this rapid condensation needs to go, or add another one here, at least, or something, because you're somewhere. By the time you get to level cap of 20, if you're pure, you do get the multi-vial SLA, which is really powerful. And by the way, I mentioned being spell point starved during heroics, and that was even with not using damaging meta magic feats. So I did not have maximize on, did not have empower on. In fact, you don't even have to worry about taking maximize or empower right away as an alchemist, because you can't afford it. And like I said, you only get one SLA, so it's not like some classes, like Druid, for example, I love to play, or maybe your Sorks or whatever. You can take maximize and empower right away, and even if you can't afford to apply them to your regular spells, you can apply them to your SLAs, and that makes worth getting it quickly. But in the Alchemist, you don't have enough offensive SLAs right away to make it worth getting those damaging meta feats. Because like I said, it's not until level 12 that you really get a decent one. This one is just a little single target thing that, is not going to carry you through 11. So you can really hold off. I'd say once you hit level 12, if you want, you can pick up like maximize, but I definitely wouldn't make empower a priority. In fact, you could even go without either one of them right through endgame and just focus on spell power. That's a very fashionable thing to do for casters these days, because you can get such high spell power, is just totally max out your spell power and forget the damaging metas, and just compensate for that with higher spell power, and then you're casting cheaper spells that you can cast more often, because they're a lot cheaper when you don't apply your damaging metas. I did use Quicken pretty much right away, and Accelerate Spell. The Accelerate Spell is a new meta magic feat that is for Alchemist, and it makes your spells deliver faster. It's not like from the time they release your hand to the time they hit their target. It's a faster. It reaches it faster, and it also, when you throw, you're throwing spell vials. You're throwing like potions, and normally you kind of lob them in a higher arc, but when you have Accelerate Spell, they go in a lower arc and they're faster. It's a faster delivery. So I definitely would recommend Accelerate Spell. It's only 5 spell points to use that. So it's pretty cheap to apply, and like I said, I did use Quicken as well. Let's see, what else can I mention in this tree? Alchemists are Conjuration and Transmutation based casters. As far as I could see, everything that they have is Transmutation and Conjuration. You don't have to worry about any other spell schools. You can just go all in with those two. And just generally speaking, your DPS nuking spells are Conjuration, and more of your DC based stuff, your like insta kills and crowd controls, that's Transmutation. There's a little bit of crossover, but generally speaking, that's how it works. So your Apothecary Tree is more like your DC caster tree, but also like a healing or positive and negative spell power tree. You get a heal SLA here, you get a cure serious wounds SLA here, a cure light wounds SLA here, Panacea Pulses SLA here, which I didn't like because it had a really short range, so you can see I picked it up. I was just too lazy to respec. And you get a cure critical wounds SLA here. And then you get a damaging SLA here. Spill the bad stuff. That's basically like a dragon breath, but it does, I think, poison damage. Oh, random type of damage. That's like the leftovers from mixing your concoctions. You're just like shooting at the enemies. I really like that the Apothecary has healing. I like that, you know, it almost feels like a Sork that has healing ability, and they're very, very powerful nukers. In fact, we were having a discussion on the live stream yesterday about what was more, you know, what was a better nuker, Sork or Alchemist, and there was some disagreement. Some people feel that Sorks are stronger nukers. Some people feel that Alchemists are stronger nukers. But really the important point here is, you know, we can argue about which is stronger. Alchemists are very, very strong nukers. So if you like playing nukers, Alchemist is very strong. And I love the fact that I could heal. I love to play healers. It was very cool to be able to have like a nuker healer. What I really didn't like about healing on an Alchemist is that, and I guess maybe this is the same as Artificer. I've never played an Artificer, so I can't compare it. But you know, the Artificers throw the spell vial healing, you know, the curative admixture, and I think it's exactly the same thing. Is if there's anything between you and your target, like if you throw a heal on a party member, if there's a mob between you and your party member, it hits the mob, it prematurely detonates, and doesn't do anything. And so I found that the heals were getting interrupted really often, and it was really frustrating. So, you know, I just made a comment on the forums how, you know, there aren't enough healers in the game, and I really don't want to discourage healers. It would be nice if, you know, they didn't prematurely explode like that. It's just really, really frustrating. You know, let's say you're trying to heal the tank, and the tank's surrounded by mobs, you know, and you try to heal them, and, you know, yeah, it's going to hit a mob. Well, one of the things a viewer mentioned, that if you can get used to, like, jump healing, when you go to throw your heal spell, jump while you're doing it, and that way your vial goes, like, kind of in a downward arc, starting higher up. You can get better success that way. I didn't really get used to that. I tried it a little bit, but I did not get into the habit of it to really tell you whether or not that made a big difference. But that's something that you can try. I can't really give you any feedback on like the sleeper death and the dissolve and all this stuff up here. I didn't play with the tier 5 stuff in the Apothecary Tree. But you can see I'm heavily splashed into Apothecary. A Bombardier is my main tree and Apothecary is my secondary tree, and that's what I did during my first life when I was pure. But on this third life, which I'm also doing a Bombardier, I'm only 19 Alchemist and I'm 1 Paladin, and that was only because I wanted to knock out a Bladeforge past life. I didn't have any Bladeforge past life, so I figured, why not? It'll give me that other additional past life, plus it'll let me skip the single-digit levels, which I found to be painful. And I kind of wanted to see, like, was it going to be good enough? Was 19 Alchemist was going to be good enough to carry me? And it was. It was definitely good enough. I could definitely feel the difference between pure and 19, but it was good enough for purposes of, you know, doing like mid-skull stuff and heroics, and then at end game, you know, I did all the first time legendary reapers. We did, you know, mostly R6s, but some R8s, and it was good enough in a group environment. You know, like I said, I definitely felt the difference. I would not recommend doing that for any kind of permanent build, but if you're just interested in knocking out a past life and you do need iconics, then that is an option for you to go 19 Alchemist and then 1 of whatever the iconic default class is. So let's see. So that's the only reason why I'm Bladeforge right now. And I was splashed both of the times that I played the Bombardier. I was splashed 31, at least 31 points into Apothecary, so I could get the heal SLA. That's why I went this far into it. 31. You got to have 30 points spent in tree to pick this up. But along the way, you know, you can get some crit chance for your positive spells, a couple points of intelligence, and some other doodads. Okay. I did like the fact that Wand and Scroll Mastery was in the Bombardier tree. I do love Wand and Scroll Mastery. During a heroic Reaper environment, you dump it at into epics because it's just not helpful enough then. But during heroics, you're getting 75% extra healing out of your wands and scrolls, so I love it. Techno Beaver, yeah, I'll get both an Alchemist and a Bladeforge past life when I do an Iconic Reincarnation, so that was the benefit of doing it as a Bladeforge. It was weaker than pure Alchemist, but hey, I'm getting 2 past lives out of it, and like I said, I was just knocking out a past life, so it was good enough for my needs of doing, R6s and R8s in a group environment, in a full group. Okay. So during my second life, and I did. I'm currently working on a video series where that showcased how that second life performed, where we did R8 Ravenloft, and I did a lengthy introduction that went more in depth in my experiences with that, and I'm going to put a link in the video for that if you're interested in hearing more about it. But what I did was a Bladeforged 15 Alchemist, 5 Paladin tank. And really, I could have done more of something like what Unsinful was doing, which was like 12 Alchemist, and then like 3 Fighter, and 5 Paladin tank. But I just, Alchemist is new, so I just decided, let me go 15 Alchemist just to see what I get out of there, if it was worthwhile. But the extra 3 levels of Alchemist, I don't really feel like did a whole lot for me. I also have another video that I'm going to link in this video description where I talk about how the reactions work, because I'm not going to be going over that here. But if you're new to Alchemist, the spell reactions can be a little bit confusing at first. It's actually very simple. I break it down in that video, and the link will be in the description, like I said, if you're interested in that information. So I found the 15 Alchemist 5 Paladin tank to be a very formidable tank. It was very durable. And you can watch us doing R8 Ravenloft, Legendary Ravenloft, if you're interested in seeing the performance. And I was invested in the Alchemist Tree, this tree here, but not to tier 5, because the tier 5 stuff doesn't really have anything for a tanky tune. So I was actually invested more into the Sacred Defender Paladin tree than I was in Alchemist stuff. And so when I was doing that, I was just, I got the Wave of Poison, and I had the poison, or the poison attack, and then I was using Poison Breath, and that was how he's generating a little bit of, basically just enough DPS to generate hate. I wasn't doing any DPS that was meaningful for any purposes other than generating hate. What I didn't like about it is it was basically one of those tanks where it's like you have no DPS, and I don't like playing tanks like that. And that's just a personal preference. I like playing my niche tanks where I can do more variety of things. They're not as good at being a tank as a full-on tank, but they work for what I want them to do. And I didn't like playing the 15 Alchemist 5 Pally tank because it was really just a tank. But like I said, as a tank, it was very durable and very effective. I was getting very high PRR. Alchemists are producing the highest PRR in the game right now because of the spell reaction and the reaction spike. Unsinful was posting screenshots of 700 PRR during the reaction spike. And so, I think Alchemists are definitely going to be part of the new meta when it comes to building tanks, because of all the extra PRR they can get. So what else? So like I said, when I was playing them as a caster, they were pretty spell point starved. It definitely got better once we got into upper heroics, but I still wasn't using damaging metas except for SLAs. But once we hit 20, and I was using the Draconic Incarnation Tree, I didn't have any problems with mana after that. The Draconic Hunger procs so many temporary spell points that it really carries the day. I was just nuking nonstop and really didn't have a problem with spell point usage at all. And then, supplementing it with energy burst and the white dragon breath, and it was just awesome. It was such a fun nuker to play. Really solid in epics and legendaries as well at endgame. I did use the Esoteric Initiate set, both heroics and at endgame, so that's the legendary Aether Band, the Enigma Core, or if you're a fleshy, you're going to use the Order's Garb, and then the Dusk Lenses. That's a 3-piece set that gives you a really phenomenal set bonus of 50 artifact bonus universal spell power, plus 4 artifact bonus intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Alchemist is an intelligence-based caster, plus 4 artifact bonus to spell DCs, and plus 20 MRR cap. Though that's all gear out of Sharn. Sharn is free to play right now through April 30th for everybody. So even if you don't have Sharn, now is the time to go in there and get the gear that you want, or from any content, because all content is free to play right now through April 30th, 2020. So Draconic Incarnation is definitely where you want to be for nuking. I did switch to Magister because this is where you want to be if you want to be more like a DC-based Alchemist that's probably more focused in the Apothecary Tree than anything else. My DCs were through the roof, but I could definitely tell a huge difference in my spell point usage, and I was running out of mana, and I played one quest. We did White Plume Mountain, and after that I was like, I'm going back to Draconic, because I was more of a nuker anyways. But I mean, your DCs were my DCs were outstanding in Magister, so if you want to do more crowd control, more insta kills, Magister can certainly be the way to go. You can see my twists were Arcane Hymn, Meld into Darkness, Conjuration Specialist, and Impregnable Mind and Endless Faith for some extra spell points. Let's talk about some spells. Let's see if there's any spells I want to mention. So I didn't realize till a little bit later in the game that the Feathers Extract is not just a Featherfall spell, but it's also Jump as well, but it's a short duration jump. So it's here at level 30, it's 2 minutes and 54 seconds of both Featherfall and Jump. So if you need a lot of extra jump, you can throw that. I thought it was just Featherfall at first. A lot of the spells that Alchemists get are basically just other spells with a new name, but they do have some new spells as well. So let's see, what do I want to specifically mention? Vein Freeze was an awesome not only nuking spell, but crowd control as well, because it freezes mobs. So it's like a Odaluk's Freezing Sphere plus a freezing effect, or kind of like a Burst of Glacial Wrath in that sense, except it's not a cone. It's you're throwing a spell vial, and it works more like I said, a Odaluk's Freezing Sphere. That was a really awesome spell. I also really liked the gold skin and the greater stone skin. So everybody knows stone skin, right? It gives you DR10 for a set amount of damage, and then once that damage is absorbed, it goes away. Well, Alchemists get greater stone skin and gold skin. Greater stone skin is exactly the same as stone skin, except it absorbs twice as much damage, and it's DR20 for twice as much damage. And the gold skin is DR30 for 3 times as much damage, and you can actually cast them all on you at the same time. They don't stack additively, but once one gets used up, then the next one's there as a backup. So I would like to cast both greater stone skin and gold skin on me, and then if the gold skin got used up, I had the greater stone skin as a backup. Plus the gold skin really looks totally hot. You get to walk around looking like a Academy Award. Look like a Grammy. Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy. So it's really cool looking like a gold statue. Let's see what else. Meltlock was fixed. However, there is a discrepancy in the the results versus the description. The description does say D20 plus your spellcraft skill against the DC of the lock. Right now, what it appears to be doing is a D20 plus your intelligence modifier plus your alchemist level. So that is a big difference, because if it was just spellcraft, well, you could get any lock in the game, because the highest possible lock DC, and I'm talking about locks, not traps, the highest possible lock DC is 100, because they're not going to go over that, because Bells of Opening are a plus 99, and that's a store item, and they're not going to make a lock higher than 100 in which the store items that are supposed to open everything would fail to work on it. So if it was spellcraft, then you would be able to get everything. So I have a feeling it is working as intended, and that the description is wrong. In any event, there is that discrepancy. That like I said, right now it's doing a D20 plus intelligence modifier plus alchemist level. But the part before where it wasn't working at the beginning, that part has been fixed. It's just what it's rolling. There's a discrepancy. Okay, what else? So your alchemists get evolution spells. They have like lesser evolution, greater evolution, and evolution. You can only have one cast on you. So once you get the higher version, you just don't even bother with the lower version anymore. But you can add +4 with greater evolution. It's a +4 to any alchemist bonus, alchemical bonus to any stat that you want. So if you're doing a nuke or a DC, you go intelligence. But if you're doing like a tank, you could choose constitution, for example. And alchemical bonus is pretty much going to stack with anything in the game. The only other alchemical bonus that I can think of to a stat would be like, your old, like Lord of Blades and Master Artificer alchemical crafting stuff. And nobody uses that anymore anyway. So it's basically it's a +4 stacking stat, which is totally awesome. Which is letting you get some really, really high stats. You also get some weapon buffs, so here's greater elemental weapons. It's really nice to carry one of those for, the melees or the ranged in your group. And by the way, I can't give you any feedback about how they play as a ranged or how they play as, a melee, but I can tell you that, some of my guildies, and the feedback that I've heard is that they're very, very, very strong throwers. But I can't really tell you anything more than that. They do have a spell called Turn to Frog, which is a single target version of Mass Frog, but this is ranged, whereas Mass Frog, is centered on the caster. This is a range, so it's basically like, like a Finger of Death, and it is really, really awesome because you can turn virtually anything into a frog, right? It's not just a living mob, it's anything as long as it's not death warded. You can turn a skeleton to a frog, you can turn a golem to a frog, you can turn the boulder that's rolling down at you in the quest Undermine into a frog. So as long as it doesn't have death ward, you can pretty much turn it into a frog. That was a lot of fun. I can't think of any other spells that I want to mention. I didn't like that Flesh to Gold Mass was centered on the caster, especially when the single target Flesh to Gold was a ranged attack, and it's basically like Flesh to Stone, except it turns into a gold statue instead of a stone statue. So the single target was ranged, but the mass version is centered on the caster. So Alchemist does have a lot of spells that are centered on the caster, and one of the outstanding crowd control spells that is like that is a spell called Flash Freeze. You want to make sure you do not overlook, like I did in my first life. Here it is, level 3. And so this is transmutation. Like I said earlier, most of your crowd control and insta kills are transmutation, and pretty much your nuking spells are conjuration. So flash freeze are really awesome. The duration is really long and is really effective in High Skull Reaper. So do not overlook that. As far as I could tell, Sanctified Vial is still broken. I had one Paladin level this life, so according to the description, I should have been able to use it. It's kind of an awkward spell, though. I think it's the first time ever in DDO's history that we have a spell on a class list where you have to be multi-classed in order to use it. You cannot use this spell unless you have Cleric or Paladin or Favored Soul levels. Okay? And the way this spell works is it's basically like Banishment, like the Divine and Arcane spell Banishment, except for undead. I can't give you any feedback on how it works because it wouldn't cast for me. Like I said, even though I have a level of Paladin, it would not cast for me. It casted it as like you are not the right class or something like that. So earlier I mentioned Smoke Bomb was pretty cool. You know, there is an SLA version of Smoke Bomb, which I'm not even sure if it's worth picking up. Probably not, because you could just take the regular spell and you can spend those action points elsewhere. But Smoke Bomb is pretty cool, and it really helps with that ambush playstyle. So for 12 seconds, you get invisibility and displacement, and you know you can run in and do your your AoEs that burst on you, whether that's Gold Skin Mass or whether that's Flash Freeze or whatever. You can do that and then just keep moving your Mass Frog, you know, when you're at endgame and so on. Alchemists also functionally get endless action boosts because your action boosts are spells. So whether it's a haste action boost or a melee action boost or a spell power action boost, as long as you have spell points, you can keep casting it, which is pretty freaking awesome. One of the things I didn't like is that I didn't find anything really that helps with Reapers. You know, when you're playing like an arcane, you can like dance a Reaper, or you could like suggest a Reaper or charm it, or you know, something like that. But as far as I could tell, Alchemist didn't really have anything. Maybe the hypnotic stuff might do something, but yeah, the Alchemists are definitely more narrowly focused than your traditional arcanes and divines. While they are excellent nukers and they have some really strong crowd control spells, they are a little bit more narrowly focused. So yeah, I definitely did not like not being able to do anything to a Reaper. A low-level spell that I really liked was a spell called Glue Bomb. So make sure you don't overlook this one. Was that level 2, I think? Yeah. So right here, this is a transmutation spell, and it's like holds them in place. And it does the little sticky stuff that like the mimics do to you, for example, and it just holds them in place. It was really, really effective. I liked that a lot. And another one I liked early on was... it had a tripping effect. Some people said they really liked salt crystals. I didn't play with this. This makes mobs considered dazed for 6 seconds. I was told this works on Reapers. I did not get a chance to try that out. But it says any damage will remove the salt. So, you know, so you can daze a Reaper for 6 seconds, but as soon as they take damage, they come out of it. So that didn't seem like it was going to be that helpful, but like I said, at least one viewer said that they liked that, so I just wanted to pass that little bit along. I want to try to find that Alchemist spell that... I'm trying to think of that. Like, it had a tripping effect. It was a low-level spell. I don't know. I don't even know if Alchemist spells are in the... oh, they are in DDO Wiki now. Cool. Fine Dust. It's a level 1 spell called Fine Dust. And they have to make a reflex saving throw, and a lot of mobs don't have good... most mobs that are mobile don't have good reflex saving throws, and so this would trip them, and I found that to be effective low-level crowd control. And then if you had, heighten later on, it could be even good, I guess, at endgame. Since it's reflex-based, like I said, a lot of mobs don't have good reflex saves. I'm quickly looking down the list of spells just to see if there's anything else I want to specifically mention. If there are any specific questions about any of my experience with Alchemist, please ask. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this segment up soon. You do get greater heroism in the form of a spell called Liquid Courage. You also get Displacement spell. You do not get other spells like Teleport and Dimension Door. You do get invisibility, and you do functionally get knock in the form of Melt Lock. Alright, let me just pull up one more thing. Because I did have some, let's see, there were some bugs and things I wanted to mention. I didn't like how Alchemist healing spells could not be quickened. I felt like the casting animation was painfully slow. Although, I guess, when it comes to the mass heals, they're faster than like a Divine's mass heal would be. In any event, the other spells definitely felt slow. You can't apply quicken to them, but you can apply quicken to other spells. Why you can't to heals, I found that pretty irritating. So I really wish they would allow the Alchemist heals to be quickened. Also found like a bug where you can't seem to use your healing SLAs on a Pale Master. If you target them, like if you have a Pale Master targeted, it won't let you cast it. All your heals are AoE though, so if you had like somebody else targeted near them, or yourself if you were near them, it would affect them, but the SLAs wouldn't. Yeah, I'm assuming that it's not as working as intended because the regular heal spells could be cast on them. Hey Fervid C, good afternoon and welcome. Also found that Alchemist healing spells were killing the Pale Master pets. So hopefully that'll be fixed as well. The Alchemist heal and heal SLA did not seem to remove stat damage and other effects. It just did healing of hit points, so hopefully that will be fixed. And that's pretty much it. You know, like I said, I do have another video that goes more in depth about my experiences playing it as the 15 Alchemist 5 Pally tank. And then I have another video that talks about, it goes in depth into how the reactions work, so I will put links in this video description. But, you know, those are my thoughts after running through Alchemist Lives. And now I'm going to go back to Druid on Ginger.